Like cattle.
I'd like to call Mentor City Council regular meeting of December 3rd, 2019 to order. The invocation will be given by Councilman Donovan.
Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this day. Help us to use good judgment for the business at hand and guide us in wisdom with a continuing sense of truth and fairness for the community we represent.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Here.
Mrs. Dowling? Here. Mr. Kirchner?
Here.
Mr. Krieger?
Here.
Mr. Landig?
Here.
Mr. Marne?
Here.
Mr. Blake?
Here.
Approval of the minutes for the work session for November 19th, 2019.
Move to approve?
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling? Yes. Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
And the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of November 19th, 2019.
So moved.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling? Yes. Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
And the minutes of the work session for November 21st, 2019.
Move to approve?
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling? Yes. Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Public hearings, we have none. Tabled legislation, we have none. New legislation. Ordinance number 19-0-095.
An ordinance to authorize transfers of funds, advances of funds, and revisions to appropriations and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Filipiak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Malinowski, please.
Thank you, Mr. Filipiak. Members of council, you have before you the final 2019 calendar year transfers, appropriation revisions, and one cash advance. The three permanent cash transfers are all from the city's general fund, totaling just under $2 million. Most of the dollar amount is related to the funding of the medical self-insured plan. Self-insurance fund, I'm sorry. The one temporary cash advance in the amount of $730,000 is for the newly created Wood Norton Way Fund that we will be building soon. And then, as noted in the staff report, there are several appropriation revisions, all related to increases and decreases to align our appropriations with the appropriate dollar amount. I would recommend approval of the entire ordinance. Thank you.
Council.
Move to suspend?
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling? Yes. Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes. Move to approve?
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling? Yes. Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-095 is passed. Ordinance number 19-0-096.
An ordinance providing for appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Mentor, Ohio for the period beginning January 1st, 2020 to and including December 31st, 2020, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Filipiak.
Thank you, Mr. President, and this represents our 2020 operating budget for next year. And I know the council has invested a lot of time in working with the administration on going over the details of this. Predominantly, most of our expenditures are located in our general fund, but as you can see, this ordinance covers all funds. We're happy to answer any additional questions you may have going into with respect to the ordinance. I recommend approval.
Council.
Move to suspend?
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling? Yes. Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes. Move to approve?
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling? Yes. Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-096 has passed. Ordinance number 19-0-097.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to purchase motor vehicle fuels during the year 2020 upon such terms and at such prices as are deemed most advantageous to the city of Mentor and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Filipiak.
President, members of council, if you would, I'll just take the next 5 ordinances together. Essentially, these are authorizing commodity purchases for the next year. That would include the purchase of motor vehicle, fuel, natural gas, electricity, rock salt, and insurance.
Move to suspend.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Move to approve.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-097 has passed. Ordinance number 19-0-98. Mr. Flippia.
Nothing further, Mr. President.
I need
The
to read
ordinance.
the title.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Doing so good. I know.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter into natural gas purchase contracts for municipal facilities during the year 2020 upon such terms and at such prices as are deemed most advantageous to the city of Mentor and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes. Move to approve.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-098 has passed. Ordinance number 19-0-099.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter into an electricity purchase contracts for municipal facilities during the year 2020 upon such terms and at such prices as are deemed most advantageous to the city of Mentor and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes. Move to approve.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-099 has passed. Ordinance number 19-0-100.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a participation agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation relative to the purchase of rock salt and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes. Move to approve.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-100 has passed. Ordinance number 19-0-101.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter into insurance contracts during the year 2020 for and on behalf of the city of Mentor and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes. Move to approve.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-101 is passed. Ordinance number 19-0-102.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to award a bid contract to Benz LLC for the Menor Lagoons Park Marina Bulkhead Replacement Project and declaring an emergency.
Okay, before we get to the city staff, we have a gentleman like to speak on this ordinance. Would you come up to the microphone, sir, state your name and address?
My name's Ron McCartney. I live at 7826 Emery Circle. Am I working? Is that better?
Yeah.
All right. My name's Ron McCartney. I live at 7826 Emery Circle in Mentor, Ohio. And the reason I'm here is, when did we start deciding when we're going to get bids for this?
That I'd have to rely on Mr. Flippia, member of your
What was the
staff.
question?
When did they decide to get bids on this?
Replacing this section of bulkhead.
Mr. Ashurst, do you remember when we went out to bid on this, the dates exactly?
We opened bids on November 22nd, so it would have been at least 3 weeks prior to that we would have advertised for bids.
First part of November?
Yes.
The city just decided all of a sudden that in the middle of winter almost that we're going to replace the bulkheads.
Yes.
Do you guys work outside in the wintertime when you're ripping your docks apart and stuff?
Well,
Mr. President?
yes,
Yeah, so we essentially bid this at the end of the season so that the work could be formed prior to the start of the new season.
I understand that. I'm glad that you guys are finally doing something. I'm very happy. I'm very on your part. Just the very timing of it all is just a little disturbing. I'm surprised there's not more people here.
I don't understand why.
yeah, I'm not,
but-
what are you upset?
Well, like you get your stuff all packed away and put away and stuff, and we've got to go down there and remove all our docks, essentially 30 feet across the street. Move everything. It's a little cold outside. Would you guys like to go stand outside for a couple hours and we'll do some work?
So your complaint is about the timing on
The
it?
timing,
Okay.
yes. That would have been, the next time you guys do this, give the boaters a little more advanced notice instead of a week that you're going to have to rip out your stuff and have it out of there by the December 29th. Kind of a little bit unrealistic, somewhat.
Well, I won't speak for the administration, but I assume you had to do it when it's not in season, so that's kind of limits it, what, the season starts in May
Yeah, but
and it ends in October, so you gotta, I think you only got a few months there to do this.
I understand that, but a little heads up beforehand. Like the boating season ends pretty much at the end of September. If they would have said, hey, instead of putting all your stuff in your dock boxes and covering everything, why don't you take it home, get rid of it, and we're going to do some preparation, get ready to put some new walls in for you.
Okay.
I know it doesn't really concern you guys that much, so.
Well, it does. I mean, now we're aware of it. I mean, this is the first time it's been brought to my attention. I can't speak for the staff. But now that we're aware of it, and our Director of Parks and Recreation is aware of it now, I'm sure they'll take that under consideration.
Yeah, for future times, let the boaters know ahead of time and the dock people. And make it much easier for them to get ready.
Okay, understood.
Instead of 3 weeks, before Christmas.
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you.
So now on ordinance number 19-0-102. You read it, right? And so now, administration?
Thank you, Mr. President. So, by way, little background, as council's aware, we had originally intended to allocate these funds toward the extension of the barrier wall along the lake, along our lake shore, to protect that portion of the marina, because that project won't go forward until fiscal year 2020, and council has budgeted funds for that purpose. We were able to use this for the original intended purpose, which was bulkhead replacement. And I'll let Mr. Ashurst tell us a little bit about the bid.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Filipiak. Members, council, four bids were opened on Friday, November 22nd for the bulkhead replacement project at the Menor Marina. The bids range from a low bid of $761.49 per foot of construction to a high bid of $1,505 per foot of construction. As a comparison, the engineer's estimate for 500 feet of replacement was $1,000 per foot for a total project cost of $500,000. With the low bid of $761.49 per foot, an additional 155 feet of bulkhead can be replaced, bringing the total replacement length up to 655 feet along Dock D. And that would be at the maximum project cost of $5,000.
And council, it is our intention to go ahead and extend that and utilize that amount because it is a very good bid, frankly, much better than what we anticipated.
Okay. Counsel?
Move to suspend.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling? Yes. Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes. Move to approve.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling? Yes. Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-102 is passed. Ordinance number 19-0-103.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to award a bid contract to James Martin Contractor Services LLC for roof repairs to the Garfield Park Maintenance Building and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Flippia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Schweikert, please.
Thank you. Bids were opened on November 19th for roof repairs to the maintenance building at Garfield Park. This is the former carriage house, which is located to the north of the pool and is attached to the former residence. The roof in question is slate, which has a nice aesthetic value, but also makes maintenance more challenging. 3 bids were received for this work, with a low bid of $102,295 from James Martin Contractor Services LLC. Their bid was only slightly above the opinion of probable construction cost of $100,000. CT Consultants performed an analysis of the bids along with a reference check and found the low bidder to be in conformance with all contract requirements. In light of this, it is my recommendation that the city award this contract to James Martin Contractor Services LLC. Thank you.
Thank you. Counsel?
Mr. President?
Yes.
Matt, what, is that the part that's hooked onto the residential housing? Is that part of the roofing?
Yes, it is. It's
project?
yeah, the slate portion. The residence has a asphalt roof, but this is the slate.
Are we using that right now for anything?
So we use that, Councilman, for storage, and we've actually had a lot of discussion. It used to be used a little bit more actively in the past.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of stuff that we no longer had use for that was moved out of there. So it's been cleaned up, it's been repaired. We store equipment in there for the most part. It's an interesting building. It's actually one of our most historic buildings. If you can picture this, it's the building with the cupola on top. And as part of this project, that cupola will be removed and refurbished and then replaced. So we don't know long-term how we might best use that building, but it's certainly in our interest, and it's part of our heritage there, and one of the most attractive buildings that we actually have out there to keep it in shape.
Yeah, I worked out of there when I was 16. Are the floors still dirt? Did we ever pour concrete floors in the garage part of that area?
Dirt and some uneven concrete, but
Okay.
it would take some more
But the
work.
garage doors work, so that's a plus, right?
Yeah, yeah. Again, I mean, it's good space, and you know, how we use that over time, we'll see.
Yeah, I was concerned about it. I just wondered if, how that residential part was working out, so.
Yeah, unrelated to the residential.
Thank you.
And in fact, as council is aware, that residential home, what used to be a caretaker home,
Right.
has been unoccupied, and ultimately, that will be opened up, and there's some work that's started, and we'll continue mostly with some of our in-house people to turn that into some sort of a meeting room opportunity for residents down the road.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Move to suspend.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-103 is passed. Ordinance number 19-0-104.
An ordinance accepting an offer of purchase for permanent parcel number 16D7770000410 by VOH Mentor LLC pursuant to Section 189.05A of the Codified Ordinances, declaring the property not needed for any public purpose, identifying unusual and impairing physical characteristics that negate its marketability, authorizing the city manager to execute for acceptance the purchase offer, standard conditions of escrow, and deed of sale, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Flippia.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance reminds me of the game Hot Potato when I was a kid. So if you remember, this was the portion of the roadway along Route 2, the Viscount property, which is now the Viscount City project, that was vacated by the city. It ultimately came into possession of the Department of Transportation, who would intended and would prefer to sell it to the adjacent landowner, in this case, the Visconti Group, but they had to sell it to us first. So we purchased it, council authorized that purchase, and Visconti will purchase it back from us at the same price.
Move to suspend.
Very clean.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ordinance number 19-0-104 is passed. Resolution 19-R-114.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to prepare and submit a coastal management assistance grant application to the State of Ohio Department of Natural Resources for construction of public access infrastructure along the marsh at the Menor Lagoons Marina and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Flippia.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Stephanie Johnson from my office is here. She is our grants coordinator, and if you have any particular questions, she'll be the one that is putting this grant together and submitting it on behalf of the city. Don't know how competitive or likely it is for us to receive grant funding for this, but we thought that it was a niche project that might be able to fit within this grant category. Essentially, this would be for the construction of a lookout, a walkway, a birding walkway essentially, and an elevated tower, lookout observation tower at our Menor Lagoons. The obvious question, and one that I've already been asked, is wouldn't this require us to go to the ballot under the terms of the charter? The answer to that is yes, but there's no reason why we can't determine if we want to take that step if and when we were to find out if funding was available to us. So I would recommend authorizing this, take our chances on the grant, and if we get it, we can decide whether or not we wish to move forward with it, or if the public would find value in this project.
Mr. President?
Yes, Ms. Dowling.
Question for Mr. Filipiak. Does the fact that we do have to go to the ballot, does that any way impede our chances for getting the grant? Is that taken into consideration, or is that out of the mix?
I don't think so, because we would be able to get on the ballot and utilize the funding within the grant, within the period within which we would have to spend it. I think the bigger question would be whether or not council wants to fund it and whether or not the public was interested in it. And this is one of those few projects that over the years, I know the council and certainly the administration has consistently heard this might be a nice amenity out there, an observation area. So we'll take our chances and I don't know, Stephanie, did you want to make any comments?
Come on, Steph.
Come on, Steph.
Mr. President.
Council needs to hear from you.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Johnson, the grants
Stephanie.
administrator.
Stephanie, I have a question. Could you just walk us through your steps of how you actually educate us on how you actually go through the process of getting a grant?
Right, so I work with these gentlemen to identify projects that align with the existing funding sources and determine which ones I feel align best with what we're doing. And it's a collaboration among all of us in kind of constructing that. So we've had several meetings to discuss logistics of this project, and work closely with the program manager at ODNR to make sure that we're kind of in line with what they're thinking.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Ken, how tall is this structure? Is this, it's hard to tell from this little picture. Is that like 3 stories or?
The height of the structure is 50 feet. I do want to mention that this grant will only cover phase 1 of a 2 or 3 phase project. It's $150,000 with a 50% match. That match can be in kind or cash.
So the height of this tower
I'm sorry.
would raise the platform on top above the tree level. So I mean, what's the thought that you go up there in the fall and you see the fall colors, sort of like you do at Holden?
That, and again, it looks out over the marsh, so for bird observation.
You know, for bird observation?
Birding.
Mr. President?
Ms. Donovan.
Stephanie, do you think,
Ornithologists?
do you believe that the, this having to go to the ballot could affect your grant process?
I do think that it could affect the grant application itself because it is a barrier.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Yes, Ms. Dowling.
Actually, the Lagoons Committee, many years ago, on one of the multiple plans that was presented to council, a bird watching, this was not the same location, but was proposed, except for the one that we had, it looked like a lighthouse. Putting the walkway around, but it was met with, I mean, the residents were pretty thrilled with that at that time. And so I think it's a great idea.
Well, and again, as Ms. Johnson pointed out, it's a multi-phased project, so we have all kinds of interest in getting closer into the marsh. And frankly, a lot of that is for bird tourism, let's call it, or for our own residents to do birding. So if we did phase one, we could consider phase two at a later date, whether with or without that observation tower. Just building a boardwalk a little bit further in, I think, is a type of amenity that is not as intrusive as some others.
Mr. President?
Yes, Ms.
Does
Donovan.
Stephanie know now that she talks, she has to come to every meeting and talk at every meeting now?
Absolutely. Thank you. It's a pleasure meeting all of you.
I will point out that Mr. Kaminsky, who's the brains behind this, is being very uncharacteristically quiet back there.
Are you sure he's the brains behind this?
Move to suspend.
Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes. Move to approve.
Second.
Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Stephanie will take any type of free money you give us, trust me. We're not used to see what that feels like here in Mineral, Ohio. Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Resolution number 19-R-114 is passed. Second reading, we have none. Third reading, we have none. Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. The 2019 yard waste collection program ends on Friday, December 13th. Residents with service through Waste Management can set out up to 25 bags or bundles of yard waste throughout that week. Curbside yard waste collection will begin again in April. As temperatures drop, the Mentor Fire Department reminds residents that space heaters need space. Keep anything that can burn at least 3 feet away from heating equipment such as furnaces, fireplaces, wood stoves, or portable space heaters, and always follow the manufacturers and UL guidelines whenever using supplemental heating devices. Also, remember that candles are an open flame that can easily ignite and should not be left unattended. Residents can check out the Mentor Fire Department's Facebook page for holiday and winter safety tips. Dominion Energy has begun the relocation of the gas main on Maple Street. The gas main will be cut and capped so that Davis Diggers can install the remaining 100 feet of proposed storm sewer to the outfall location along the railroad tracks, and this work is tentatively scheduled for Friday. So with any luck, that project will be in place before the year's up. Wildwood's holiday open houses are on Wednesday, December 4th from 5 to 7 p.m. and Thursday, December 5th from 1 to 3 p.m. And there is another one scheduled for later in December that I don't think there's a date assigned to yet. Take a tour of the beautifully decorated manor house, visit the model train display, and enjoy hot chocolate and fresh baked cookies. Admission is free and information is on the city website calendar. Santa's Wild Workshops will take place this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the Wildwood Cultural Center, and again on Wednesday evening, December 11th. Again, check the city's website or call the Recreation Department for times and to register. The Holiday Family Skate at Mentor Ice Arena is on December 15th from 1:30 to 3:30. Skate to holiday tunes and visit with Santa. Following the family skate, there will be a free holiday figure skating performance by the Mentor Figure Skating Club with the studio rink open for skaters under 8 years old. The cost is $4 and $2 for skate rental. And again, check the city's website for open skate opportunities throughout the holidays. Happy to report to council that we did receive our S&P Global Ratings assignment. It is once again a AA+ rating, which is just one tick below that AAA. for our long-term rating on the bond series that we are about to go out to sale for. And they also, at the same time, affirmed our AA+ long-term rating on our existing GO debt with a stable outlook. So that's all very good news and should translate into some pretty low interest rates once we go out to bid. And that bid is when, Mr. Malinowski?
We're selling on Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. And finally, council, I just want to finish out the year by thanking all of you for all the cooperation and good work that we've been able to accomplish here together this year. And I also, in particular, want to thank all the city employees and our staff who worked very tirelessly all year round to bring highest quality services we can to our residents, and we appreciate all the patience and assistance and goodwill that we got for them along throughout the course of the year. That's it.
Clerk's correspondence.
Actually, so council received late a liquor request for a new liquor permit for Austin's Mentor LLC, DBA Austin's Grill at 8748 Mentor Avenue.
Gentlemen, that's the old burger fight. Does anybody have any objection on that? No. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Do you want to vote? Need a vote?
We don't have to vote on it.
No, we're good.
Whoops, and you were doing so well.
Well, I just want to make sure since it wasn't on our agenda. I wanted to be official as possible.
Commission and committee reports. We have the meeting minutes for the Municipal Planning Commission of November 7th, 2019, and the Tree Commission for November 13th, 2019. Old business, we have none.
No,
Mr. President?
Up. Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Landy.
Landy.
yeah, thank you, Council President. Thank you to the administration. Shortly after our last meeting, I saw on the Mentor app, they posted November 22nd were the leaf drop-off locations after the program expires on the 13th. My follow-up question would be, are any of those pickup leaves? So where they go and suck them up and take them right from the resident's tree lawn? Or do any of those provide that service? Do we know?
Mr. Schweikert, do you know if any of that type of service is out there on the private side?
Well, I don't believe that what's out there now, I think that was locations where people could drop off. I know there are services that do what you're talking about, where they come and vacuum. I don't know any off the top of my head, but we could probably find some and try to put it on the website.
Yeah, I did receive a call. Somebody was picking up leaves and they did such a poor job. They wanted to make sure that business didn't get a recommendation, but I'm sure there are people out there that will do it at a reasonable cost and do a good job for the residents that don't want to bag them and haul them and drop them off, but rather just have them picked up by a service.
We'll see if we can locate someone that is reputable, and if so, we can add it to that list.
Thanks.
Anything else? New business. I want to read the positions again that we have available for the different commissions and committees. We're accepting resumes and applications for the following volunteer positions. 2 electors of the City of Mentor to serve 4-year terms on the Board of Building and Zoning Appeals, ending on 12/31/23. 1 elector of the City of Mentor to serve a 4-year term on the Municipal Planning Commission, ending 12/31/23. 1 elector of the City of Mentor to serve a 3-year term on the Fair Housing Board, ending 12/31/22. 3 persons, 3 electors, to serve 2-year terms on the Board of Tax Review, ending 12/31/21. 1 elector of the City of Mentor to serve a 4-year term on the Tree Commission, ending 12/31/23. Persons seeking appointment to a position must submit an application and resume to the Clerk of Council. Deadline for the submission is 5 p.m., December 15th, 2019. For more information, contact Schiavone@cityofmentor.com or call 440-974-5700. Persons before council.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Is there new business? Congratulations to a great season for the Mentor Fighting Cardinals football team. Came up a little short. Congratulations to Coach Triv, long distinguished career. And also congratulations to not only the band, the majorettes, the trainers, and everybody else, because they're out there year-round basically too. And it's a great situation. It's always great to bring the community together, and another successful run. Even though we came up a little short.
Well, hope for a good basketball season also.
Exactly. Oh, and number 2 is good luck to Kirtland.
Yes.
They're in their championship game this Saturday. And that's all I got.
Persons before council, we have none.
Move to adjourn.
Second.